they knew they were never going to make another Baldur's Gate 3. So please don't try.
In the halls of Hasbro with their slick desks and their mirrored ceilings.
I've seen American Psycho. I'm aware of what mirrored ceilings mean.
All right, second last story for this week. Wizards of the Coast has opened a new gaming studio here. Arlo, can you read out announcement 1 for us?
Wizards of the Coast is opening a new video game studio to work on new and ongoing projects for Dungeons, Dragons, and digital games. Wizards of the Coast Incorporated will open in Montreal, a stone's throw away from Hasbro's existing Invoke Studios.
So this is the 5th gaming studio that Hasbro has opened recently, and this is the 4th one that they've announced to be working on a D&D game. And I think every time one of these studio opens and they announce to be working on a D&D game, and we know that Larian is saying, no, we're not doing Baldur's Gate 4, we're all just like, Baldur's Gate 4? So what do you guys think? Is this Baldur's Gate 4?
I feel so strongly about this as somebody, and we were all there. We all remember this as somebody that all got to meet Amelia Tyler the other day. For Larian to have stepped away from Baldur's Gate 3 has left me little to no confidence that Baldur's Gate 4 happens, and if it does happen, it is going to be a dumpster fire of a game. It will be nothing worth playing. I did some research about this one because I feel really strongly about this one, Jack. Okay. So the other, and we spoke about it here. So a stone's throw away from Hasbro's Invoke Studios, right? Now, I'm sure you're all wondering, Invoke Studios, Hasbro, such a prestigious company. Surely their game credits and list must be so long. You jump over the Wikipedia page of Invoke Studio, you wonder, what have they done? What have they got going on there? What games do they have under their belt? They have 2 games. Prolific games, maybe? You guys ever heard of a little thing called Livelock? No, me either. Have you guys ever heard of a little IP called Dungeons and Dragons? Of course. However, have we heard of Dungeons and Dragons Dark Alliance?
I have heard of that. There's,
I have
good memories from that one back in the day. Is that the one that they did back in the day and they brought back recently?
This is, I'll quickly read an excerpt from the Wikipedia page here I have up. The game was released in June 2021 for Windows, PlayStation 4, 5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X or S. It was delisted from digital storefronts and had its online multiplayer servers shut down on February 24th, 2025.
Yeah.
Now, this is all conjecture, allegedly, all that kind of good legal wiggle jargon. But if we were to trust a company to make Baldur's Gate 4, do we trust it in the hands of Hasbro, who had their servers shut down this year and made a game called Livelock that no one's ever heard of? Or do we maybe trust somebody else to do it? Because I have no faith in this.
I will remain optimistic that this isn't Baldur's Gate 4. Despite what you might think of this entirely separate company, Riot Games, I think they've done a pretty cool job at rolling out like supplementary games that like build on their world. Like they're not out here every year being like, we're going to bring out League of Legends 2. They've done a couple of really cool mini things that I'm like, I have no reason to believe this, but as I was exploring Fantasyland in my head, I made notes of like, what would be a cool... And I'm like, oh, it'd be cool if they made like an isometric indie. Like I'm thinking like Hades 2, where you play as somebody like adventuring through a part of, the sword goes, you're an adventurer, and it's just like a little cutesy, not too complicated roguelike thing that should exist.
The dungeon of a mad mage that exists underneath a famous town in thing. It goes so deep that it changes every time that you enter, and there's your roguelite.
Wouldn't that
Don't
be
try
sick?
and win me over. Don't try and win me over.
No, I have no reason to believe, but I'm saying if that's the fact that how many studios are now working on D&D games?
So Hasbro's opened 5 studios, 4 of which have been announced to be working on D&D properties of some kind.
Yeah, my fear is that they're all working on the same one, and
they haven't been told.
No, it's more like I hope they're all doing their own mini side projects and you get to see more things, because I think that's the unfortunate thing is, no, it's not unfortunate. The world and like lore of D&D is really strong, and I think this is the thing that Larian knew. They knew they were never going to make another Baldur's Gate 3. So I don't think anyone else who isn't them is going to do a better job in it. So please, on behalf of everyone, don't try. Don't try. Please don't.
I have the strangest comparison for this, right? So when I was a kid, I was a massive Yu-Gi-Oh fan. Less so these days. You know, it's a hard game to keep up with. I only just got back into Magic. I can't afford another card game. But the idea of Kyber Corp making a dual deck and being able to holographically project the monsters, for my tiny child brain, I was like, this is the coolest thing that's ever existed. It doesn't get any better than this. We don't want to reinvent the wheel when it comes to this game. We like the game. It's been called the same thing for so many years. The core of the game has been the same. Just give us something that enhances the game to a level that we previously didn't know was possible. You know, and we've seen that leap forward with online games and virtual tabletops and everything like that. That's incredible. Now you can play with people across the world that you probably never would have met otherwise. The question is, what is the next step for that, and how do they make it in a way that they can mass market it to everybody and it's possible for everyone to access? Give me my Yu-Gi-Oh! Dual Disc. I don't want a different game.
My gosh, what a long bow to draw on that analogy right there. You brought it home in the end.
Way to circle back.
I was lost
like,
in the woods.
What was the analogy?
Why did Connor want to talk about Yu-Gi-Oh! So bad?
I've just had another. Here you go. Here's a free one for you, Hasbro. I've just had another game idea that popped into my mind. People love like town. Like there's a lot of like tavern simulator type vibe. Just do a game where it's like town management. Think SimCity vibe, and then you just have to deal with the chaos of an adventuring party coming through and burning through things. So it's just SimCity, except there's a D&D party that's going to come through and ruin everything, and then you have to readjust as they come back through again.
Cozy game, run based as well. Yeah, every time you just dealing with the aftermath of an adventuring party coming through your town. It's probably like virtual novel kind of vibes to it.
Exactly.
Not much to make, pixel art, easy. There's a home run for you, Hasbro. Take it right there from your mate Arlo.
Please don't make Baldur's Gate.
I have extremely bad news for you guys. Baldur's Gate 4 is 100% coming. There is no doubt in my mind that in the halls of Hasbro with their slick desks and their mirrored ceilings, I don't know what that means.
I've seen American Psycho. I'm aware of what mirrored ceilings.
They're looking at charts and they're looking at Baldur's Gate 3 and they're saying, look at all that money. Mm-hmm. We are not making the next one. Shut the hell up and open up another studio and let's have another crack. Don't tell them they're working on a game that 4 other studios are also working on, and then we'll just pick the best one at the end. That's what I feel like is happening here.
Wow.
The last part's a joke. What I think is happening is that people are in a boardroom. That conversation is happening, and hopefully there's some other folks in there being like, let's make it good. How about that? Like let's go to CD Projekt Red, or let's go to another venerable RPG publisher like Obsidian or Bethesda or something like that, and let's license them to do something. Let's not try and spin up a brand new studio to make the most complicated type of game that anyone could possibly try and make. With all that dialogue, come on, get out of here.
Do we have anyone have quick access to how long Baldur's Gate 3 was in development for?
About 6 years is the rough ballpark of how long Baldur's Gate 3 was in development for. I don't know whether that includes like beta, like early access time, but it was about like 6 years roughly is what they say.
And they're definitely not going to give it that much time again, is the sad thing.
Yes. So, look, I remain optimistic that a Baldur's Gate 4 will come out and it will be good. So I have my hopes held high. I have no reason to believe that it will be a total piece of crap.
I will see you in 2 years' time, because that's how long I think they're going to develop it for. I'll meet you back here on the pod in 2 years' time, and we'll talk about the mixed to bad review and reception of it. And I'm going to say, hey, Jack, do you remember?
Yep.
and then I will win some kind of prize. I'm not sure what it is
you'll
yet. We'll see.
You'll win the anti-optimism prize. Is what you'll win.
And I look forward to being back here in 16 months' time when I feel very stupid for pitching all these great little indie games for Hasbro and they decide to develop them because they're really worth it, and that's where you should shift your attention.
If off your ideas.
If I had to, because I honestly, the roguelike idea that Arlo has thrown out has really thrown me for a loop because I am so... Hades 2 has me in its clutches right now. It's currently open in the background of my computer. That's kind of where I'm at in my Hades addiction right now. If I had to pitch another idea for Hasbro to steal, I need a cyberpunk, but I need it to be D&D. That's what I need. I need a first person.
Cool.
No, I said Final Fantasy. Those games exist. I need a first person D&D game in the same vein as Cyberpunk. Give it to me,
Skyrim
inject
style.
it into my veins.
You could have. Why didn't you say Skyrim?
Cyberpunk's a weird pull.
Skyrim is 12 years old, man. I care not for Skyrim. I want licensed monsters. I don't want mud crabs. I'm not looking for a Khajiit. I'm looking for a Tabaxi.
That's fair.
Yeah, I like that. I think that I'd like to see something like that as well. Like, I think there is as you touched on, Arlo, there's a lot of great stuff in the D&D fiction. There's a lot of not so great stuff in there as well, but like there's good, meaningful material that could be turned into interesting video games that are not Baldur's Gate 4. Like, I'd like to see, like, this is just as ambitious as Baldur's Gate 4, but I'd like to see like a Witcher 3 style game where I'm playing like Drist Do'Urden or something like that, being a cool ranger. Like, let's give credit to everyone's favorite class, the ranger, and let's cast them at the front of one of these games. But before we move on from this, I want to touch on Dark Alliance quickly that you mentioned earlier, Connor. So I remember this game. I played this game when it came out, and yeah, it's not very good. But it is the spiritual successor to Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance and Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance 2. And they came out, to mid-2000s, I feel like, and they were freaking awesome, those games. They were like top-down console games, isometric. You play like a barbarian. You'd got like D&D classes, and it was just like an action beat-em-up with some role-playing elements. Super fun. And we all thought that this game was going to be like a cool throwback to that. And it was. Like, it was like a beat-em-up, but it was just like not good was the problem.
And what's even more indicative of that is at the top of the Wikipedia article for Dungeons & Dragons Dark Alliance, it does say not to be confused with the 2001 video game Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance. So even they know that people have gone here for the nostalgia and they've been led astray.
Even the wording of this approach is salty about it. It says the title of the game alludes to Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance and Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance 2. Seeing itself as their spiritual successor. So not saying the game is their spiritual successor, saying that the game considers itself the spiritual successor.
A very quick blast from IGN as well in the review. But in all my years, I've seldom seen anyone roll a critical failure quite like Dungeons & Dragons Dark Alliance, which manages to take all that potential and turn it into a joyless labor that's mind-numbingly repetitive, deeply lacking in storytelling, and absolutely overflowing with bugs.
Oh, my goodness. 5 stars.
5 stars.
Hi.
All right, so last story for this week. D&D's announced some new magic. It's for the upcoming Faerun book. So Circle Magic, it's called. And Arlo, you're the man when it comes to D&D around here and those new rules. What's this new magic all about?
You're right, Jack. I do love reading things because I get to make more short-form content out of this. So it's pretty cool. I got excited going through it all because prior to you sending this, just hadn't heard anything about this, so it was exciting to dive in and look at. But yeah, it's introducing a kind of new form of magic called like Circle Magic, which requires multiple spellcasters. Like there's kind of a lead for any circle who casts a spell, and then you have multiple other spellcasters who contribute, depending on what the spell is, an equivalent spell slot to just increase the effect, radius, and range, typically at the cost of a pretty high material component. And they're bringing out new spells, which is very, very cool and very exciting. And I'm going to jump across because I was doing a mad deep dive on the potential of what these new spells were. I was getting very excited before. But one of the new ones, Doomtide, pretty chill. It's just another area of effect spell that's like a 20-foot radius, deals 5d6 psychic damage. But if you start your turn in there or enter the zone when it's cast on you, you roll a saving throw. And if you fail, you get subtracted 1d6 from all subsequent saving throws that you make, which is a cool, negative, kind of newer effect to use. I think that's really fun. And then there's also Spellfire Storm, which is just a big-ass damage dealer spell, 20-foot radius, 20-foot high cylinder, 4d10 radiant damage to creatures within. But it also doesn't explain how, which I'm really excited to figure out, but it says it interferes or can prevent creatures within that, like, to cast spells. Like, it's kind of an interrupt, which seems awesome. And then they gave a cool example of using that one as like a casted circle. So obviously it's 20 foot by 20 foot, but if you invest a sapphire worth 25,000 gold, you can increase the radius to a mile, and it no longer requires concentration. So it's kind of like big bad evil cult vibe. They're doing this mile-wide thing that is just mass nuking people that doesn't need to be concentrated on. And I think that was what was really exciting to me with the ideas of some of the circle magic is it seems just as much of a tool for a DM to use for scary spellcaster cult type people than it is for, because you're not necessarily going to have 4 or 5 spellcasters in your D&D party. So circle magic seems very just cult dark magic vibe DM tool, which is such a vibe. Like, I'm so excited to see how, like, I'm assuming that it's going to list out which, because it's not every spell that can be cast as a circle. I think they're concentration based spells, but I'm intrigued to see what the actual effects are and what, because just more ways of diversifying magic and making more interesting encounters and just like giving new ways of doing things is always fun. So very excited to see what happens with all of this.
I think you said exactly what I was going to say. It seems like a tool for DMs more than anything else.
Yeah.
Show me a party that has 5 spellcasters in it. That was my initial thought. I'm like, I don't think a party's ever going to use this. I don't see this ever happening for a party.
No, you definitely, unless you're playing a bit of a meme party where they are all casters. So it is definitely a tool that'll be much more beneficial for DMs. And I mean, as a not forever DM anymore, but yeah, it's always fun to have more tools in the tool belt of things you can throw at your players, because Dark Magic Cult is so up my alley of things I always have in my campaigns. It's been an overarching thread of my big bad and his circle of people for a 2-year campaign that I've been running. And I would have loved circle magic throughout that campaign. So happy to weave that into some stuff that I'm doing.
I think it's very evocative for me of like hags and like hag circles, because I'm pretty sure this is in like Ravenloft. I could be 100% wrong. I'm happy to take the L, but I'm fairly certain if hags are in a coven, they get access to more spells, because they're in that circle.
Yes.
And hags are more like empowered when they're in the same circle. It gives me that same vibe. So if I'm seeing circle magic, I'm immediately thinking this is evil. This is for evil magic, and this is only evil magic.
Yeah, and they've given a little like breakdown of like what the circle magic options are going to be, like because there's the lead who can kind of determine how the circle is going to like redefine it. Like this is the key. I'll just read through the key. So when a group of casters shape a spell with circle magic, the primary caster can choose one of the following ways to enhance or redefine the spell that they're casting. So they can augment it, which is stretching the spell's range by thousands of feet, which is the example I gave before with that other spell. Distribute, which lets allies share the burden of concentration, keeping the spell's effects steady. So I think that just means multiple people being concentrating on once, so it like can't be broken by one. I think you have to break everyone's concentration. That's my assumption. Expand, which widens the spell's influence, increasing its area of effect. I guess it would be dependent on what the spell is and the effect, but I'm sure we'll see more of that soon. Prolong is sustain the spell's effect for hours beyond its typical duration, which is awesome. Safeguard, shape the weave to spare your allies from the storm you unleash. So there you go, preventing damage from allies. Also very nice. Supplant, replacing costly material components with the collective strength of your circle. So that's a really interesting one where intrigued to see what spells you can do that for. I'm wondering if all of these options are available for every single spell as well. That'd be interesting.
My initial thought for the supplant would be like a revivify or a true resurrection or something like that, where you don't have the necessary components to bring somebody back to life. So you're having to, if it were me and I was DMing this and this situation came up and the players knew that they couldn't do that, it's like maybe if there was one cleric in the party and they found a circle of other clerics, then it would be like a, hey, instead of trying to find a diamond for true resurrection, you can try and lend your strength to this circle of clerics to bring it back. There's no guarantee it would work. And honestly, this sounds like something that I would homebrew already. So the fact that they've made something that feels like it fits in so seamlessly with people's home games, like this feels like a tool that people have made up in the past, and Wizards of the Coast have gone, you know what, this has a lot of credence. And I think this makes a lot of sense.
Oh, I can't wait to see them more. I can't wait to see what they do with it. See, hey, it feels so good to be excited about D&D.
Dare I say, we're back?
We might be back, gang. Let's see what they do with the spines on these books and see if they keep them the proper color so I can match them to my other books. Ooh. That's the top priority for me at this stage. But let's jump into our final segment for today. So to close things up, we're going to dive into a new recurring segment for the show. So last week on a behind-the-scenes episode of Sounds Like Adventure, I broke down everything that you need to prep to run a perfect one-shot, basically. So in my opinion, a good one-shot is just 5 scenes, 3 encounters, but 5 scenes total. So it's an introduction where the players intro who they're playing, a social encounter with an NPC who sets the goal for the adventure, an exploration encounter with 3 points of interest, a climax that can be a couple of different encounters, but it's usually combat, and then a conclusion, which is like a fun little recap scene, like players go to a party type of thing at the end. So over the next 5 episodes, I want to go through each of these steps in detail, break down what you need to do and why I think it's important. And I want to get your guys' thoughts on this as well. So today, we're going to dive into the introduction. So when I say introduction here, I'm not talking about like your opening narration and all that kind of stuff that people do, because here's another secret. I think you only need 4 sentences of narration for any scene, and that's it. If you write more than that, you're out of control. But anyway, I'm out of control in a lot of times because I write a lot more than that for Sounds Like Adventure. But home games. I'm talking about the moment when you set up a scene for all the players to introduce who they are playing. So to start, how do you guys approach this when you're doing your intros? You can, if you've got one-shot experience, talk one-shot. You're more of a campaign kind of guy. How do you do it in your campaign? Connor, why don't you go first?
I've done both. I've run 2 fairly long-form campaigns, and I love them dearly. And I run a lot of one-shots. I run a lot of one-shots for my friends, and I run a lot of one-shots for people I don't know as well. Something that I've started doing recently is you don't allow them the second to potter around, and you throw them in the action immediately. The cart's rolling down the hill. You're the only ones that can stop it. How do you make that happen? You get thrown out of the tavern immediately, told never to come back, landing at the foot of this angry hill giant. What are you doing? Immediately throwing an encounter their way. And that way, you can immediately let them show off their cool skills. Because you're in a one-shot, let's assume one-shot, you have a very limited amount of time here. The players have to characterize who they are, what they can do, and their abilities, hopefully in that intro sequence there. So if you give them something where they can immediately throw themselves into it, it's good. It gets the ball rolling. Everybody becomes comfortable throwing spells, throwing attacks around, and it makes more fun. You're letting the Beyblade rip from the get-go.
Love that. Arlo?
I've only GM'd 3 groups ever, and every single one of them have had very new players in them as separate groups. And the first one I did, I was a very new GM, so we definitely did the awkward, stumbling, nothing's happening thing for too long. And after 2 years of DMing that campaign, I learned a lot of things. The next time I ran one, it's kind of the consistency of how I do it now. In a very similar sense of throwing people in, I like to introduce people individually but sequentially. Like the last campaign I ran is kind of American college, Hogwarts, a lack of a better source material. And, one individual came in on a train. There was some interesting where they're having a bit of dialogue argument with their parent because it tied in with things, and they wanted to showcase some of that early. And it cut to them walking through the door. And one of the other guys plays for the school's American football team. So we did a quick little interactive thing where he was just dodging a tackle, and he kind of rolled his ankle in the process because he rolled poorly, but that kind of just tied in with the aesthetic of his character, and kind of like movie scene where you get to see all of the characters just cross paths inadvertently to start it and all giving them a little bit of time to shine, but doing it individually in a sense so they'll kind of get their own little moment and then bring it all together for just an unbelievable coincidence, and they now are all near each other and now there's a thing that they have to react to or respond to.
Yes, I love that. I call that the Dimension 20 style, that one where you start with the big sweeping, everyone gets their little scene, and then all of a sudden, oh, hey, Eustace just shot out of the well, type of thing. That's definitely a lot of fun to do. So the introduction, I reckon, for a one-shot for a D&D game is like super important. And I think basically every D&D book teaches players to do it wrong. So I think what people usually do with an intro, they're like, it's a tavern. It's a static location. Players can just roam around and interact with stuff in this location. And the agency's totally on the players to do that. You could do that in a long campaign if you want to. I don't really love doing it. I don't think it's a lot of fun. But for a one-shot introduction, you should put the players in a vehicle of some kind that is traveling to the location that they're going to be focused at achieving the quest in, essentially. And the key thing here is the player characters know the destination, but the players don't know the destination. So the only thing that they can do is describe what they look like and interact with each other in that little opening scene. Because in your one shot, you've got such a limited amount of time. You need to get them through that and you need to move into the next thing as soon as possible, basically. So if you limit the things that can be interacted with in the early stage, you can still have an intro where it's not immediate role play. It's not immediate drama happening. It's still a slow-paced thing where people can find their footing, especially if they're newer players, but it's controlled. You have control of it, and that's key in a one-shot. So then the second part of this, I think, is actually letting the players intro their characters. And I think this is like mega underrated here. Connor, you kind of touched on how you do this. How do you approach the character intros?
I like to let them do it through action a lot of the time. And this is, a lot of the time, it's people that are maybe a little bit more comfortable with D&D prior, and they'll describe an action, they'll describe how they do something. But I also think it's a really good tool for new players as well, because they may not be immediately comfortable being like, I slide underneath the giant's legs, fire my crossbow, roll out of the way. But it lets you say to them, how would your character do this? And immediately they're thinking, and they're going, oh, I didn't think about that. How would my character do this? It puts them in the mindset of thinking about how their character would have like the most minute reactions or the most dramatic rolls out of everything. And it makes them feel cool.
That's so much cooler of an answer than I have. I play with a lot of family members who aren't one for overly descriptive descriptions, and I definitely try and handhold them through the process. A lot of the time it comes down to, especially in the introductory process, as I was saying, going through these kind of pathing introduction of individuals, it'll be setting a scene of what I've worked with them to agree on how they want their character to come into shot, and then throwing across at them to give, for a lot of them, just the physical characteristics of what they look like, their height, their stature, anything notable that somebody would notice looking at them is sometimes the most I'll get out of them in that regard. A lot of the time, if I've got a more experienced player at the group that I know is a lot more comfortable with putting on that kind of flourish and extra information, I'll do that to kind of set the standard. But some of them are my brothers, and I can't expect too much of them because I've known them my entire life, and that's okay by me.
Not everybody knows how they want to do this.
Yeah, because it's easy to feel put on the spot by some of the stuff that we naturally do as DMs who like role play. And I find right at the beginning of a campaign, when you're put on the spot, all of a sudden you can feel like, oh my God, and I'm in an episode of Thank God You're Here all of a sudden. It's my first time playing. I don't know what to say. I feel like I'm mucking things up. And that's why one of the reasons why I think intros are super important, because there's an imbalance between the work you do as a DM and the work you do as a player. But being a player is also hard. And one of the main things that makes being a player hard is you can't really prepare anything. You can't prepare what you're going to say. You can't really prepare anything at all. You have to react in the moment to what the DM does. And let me tell you, I'm the DM. I've prepared a bunch of shit. I'm trying to actively fuck you up is what I'm trying to do. And that's a little unfair. So one of the only things that players can actually prepare is their opening description of their character. And it can be a little safety blanket for players when they're coming into these games for the first time to have these notes down, ready to go to talk about their character. And I can say in one of my first ever games that I played, I planned out my whole description. My guy sounded cool as hell. I was so excited to talk about it. And then they just jumped straight in and they were like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, I got a jacket, but let's go. And then there was no opportunity for me to ever describe what my character looked like from that point forward. And I think if you don't do it in the intro, those opportunities often just don't come up because you're just moving along. We as DMs put a lot of internal pressure on ourselves to be like, I need to know the rule. I need to keep things moving. I need to stop there being dead air. I need to just progress forward all the time. And I'm not going to stop down and be like, oh, tell me about your jacket or something like that. But the intro is the perfect time.
Yeah.
So, let players have their fun because, there's just not a lot of opportunities for it.
I think in conjunction with what you're saying, Jack, I think sometimes as the GM, you forget that just because you have the behind-scene knowledge of, what the character looks like because you have seen it written down, that, you just kind of got to remember that. Give them the opportunity to share that cool bit of information with everyone else at the table because it is easy enough to be like, I know you're playing as a green half orc with buck teeth. Like I've read through your thing, but no one else does until they tell them. And nothing worse than and then you don't want to be a player sitting there kind of on the other end being like, I don't remember if I should know what this person looks like, so I'm just never going to ask about it and just have this illusionary image in my head of what they look like.
And in the same vein, reward your players if they're putting effort into describing their characters or describing their actions. I think that's the coolest part. And I don't often get caught on the back foot when it comes to describing something because I do it a lot. But Arlo and Lockie and I played in a game the other day called Enclave, which is it's a diceless RPG, which is so crazy because I love dice. And I remember I said something really offhand about reading a passage out of a book, and then Robbie, the DM, the conduit, is what they're called there, said, "Okay, what do you read out of the book?" I was like, "Excuse me." What do you mean by that? And he's like, tell me what you're reading out of the book. I said, oh my God, come back to me. I actually have no idea. And but then it's the fact that he came back after I had a little think about it. I spat some random passage out that I wrote. And then he's like, cool, here's an actual a system-based reward for you doing good role play. And I think that if there's one thing you should take from different systems like that and getting to play those things is that even if it's D&D and this person has just for the first time ever described how their character saunters into the tavern, drinks a beer and sits down, it's that's incredible. Have inspiration. This is me showing you that you're engaging as actively in my game as I am playing it for you. Here's something for you to keep doing that. I think that's so good.
That is good. And it leads into one of my hot takes that D&D presents role play as completely optional and provides no benefits to any players for engaging with it and wants you to do nothing but combat. But hey, the last thing for a perfect one-shot and our simplified prep here is that the moment the last character finishes that intro, they arrive at their destination and the social encounter begins. You don't let it keep going. It's the second it's done, bang, we're here. You're getting your information about your quest, which your player characters know, but you don't know. So you have to find out about it all right then. It feels fresh and it motivates you to move into the next scene because that's key. To run a really good one-shot, you need to slice through all of the connective tissue. Any moment where it's just meandering around, that's when you have to grab people and yank them into the next scene. Because if they don't, you're going to run out of time. People are not going to get to go home on time. Spouse is going to be upset at people, and nobody wants to play D&D with you anymore. So that's how it goes, gang. Them's the rules. I don't make them. I just say them.
And very, very briefly, because that's so true. There can be no fat in a one shot. I've been guilty of it in the past where I've written one shots, and this was early in my D&D games, where I've gone like, oh, this has gone way too long. What do I do about it? How do I make this run smoother? If I were to go back in time and like talk to me writing those, I'd say delete it. Delete that part. You actually don't need that. Get rid of that entirely. And that's fine. You don't actually need all 3 encounters there, buddy. Cut 2 out. Make one of them tougher. If it looks like that encounter's running too long, the monster suddenly has 100 less hit points. How did that happen? I don't know. Common sense, I guess.
Super ice cold take is that not a bad thing if your one shot runs under time and not over.
That's the hottest D&D take I have ever heard. The fact that a session could be short, that's like sacrilegious at this stage.
What do you mean? But no one's going to get to hear my same joke over and over again that I can repeat ad nauseum. What are they going to do without that?
Look, we love it. We look forward to it every week. But that is it for this episode of The Table Business. Connor, where can people find you if they want more?
Gang, thank you so much for having me on here tonight. My name is Connor, Cloudkill Connor on the internet. If you're feeling like looking me up, I'm over on Twitch, Instagram, YouTube, and that's pretty much it for me. Let me toss it to my good buddy.
Is it me? Am I the
Well,
buddy?
it wouldn't be the host of the podcast, would it?
I guess I'm not a buddy, damn.
No, because you're a bestie.
Oh, I'm not a bestie. Hi, everyone. I'm Arlo. You can find me here at Sounds Like Adventure, doing Sounds Like Adventure things. And in my spare time, I run a little YouTube and TikTok and Instagram channel called Lentric. I make D&D and TTRPG and MTG content that is skit-formed and short-based. And we do long-form stuff as well. So a lot of fun stuff coming out there. Appreciate you being there. But if not, come here. Watch me on live streams.
Well, thanks for joining me, guys.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks
Please
for having
have
us,
me
Jack.
back.
And in the meantime, I'll catch you in the next episode of The Table Business.